can't see it. So there's no button, guys. I haven't got a button.
I thought we wouldn't have a problem with you, Rebecca. I thought that we would be the problem technology-wise. Rebecca could be on It's Called Soccer shorter than Liz Truss was as Prime Minister.
Well, you were at Valencia.
Gary, where are you?
I'm at home. You've never been here, Philip. You're a distant remote brother.
I read yesterday that you nearly died on a plane. Is that true?
Not really, no.
I keep reading that you fainted, you've had seizure. Honestly, you don't tell me these things.
Rumours of his death have been greatly exaggerated.
Your accent's changed, Phil, from when you were younger.
I thought that.
To be honest with you, if that was a pass to Martinelli, then he probably should have been yellow carded for the inaccuracy of the pass. It was.
Gary, you not got any tattoos?
It was going to be a lion and a devil.
From the very first moment I addressed the team, I was just obsessed.
It very much feels now like, Arsenal are right on the shoulder of Manchester City.
Arsenal have really got under Manchester City's skin.
And they just decked it out in Portland Timbers gear with Neville on the shirts, and this was before I'd even interviewed.
So basically, if you want Phil Neville to work for you, put a bit of free merchandise in his room. And you...
Welcome everybody to episode 2 of It's Called Soccer. Last week we were in Carragher's bar in New York City. This week we're all at home, although it looks like Jamie is still in the bar. I mean,
this was originally, I must say, a computer room for my son, a spare bedroom. So we put a little Liverpool theme on it with "You'll Never Walk Alone" for him. But when you say it, it's got more of me son. It's got a Wigan shirt of my son here, a picture with me and the kids on Anfield and lifting the FA Cup. So it's more of a shine to the kids, actually. There's a boot from Messi when we were mates, when we were still friends, up there. And there's actually an England shirt there from '66 where all the players have signed, obviously a long time ago.
That Champions League, that Champions League trophy looks a little bit rusty.
I know that's not from 2005. That's from 1984. That one, I think.
What, did you nick it?
Well, I haven't paid for anything in here.
Gary, what have you been up to? We saw you with some American friends last week.
Ooh,
yeah,
American friends.
Yeah, I went to Birmingham and Wrexham. I had a really good night. It was enjoyable. Obviously, I've watched a lot of League Two football. I've watched obviously a lot of Premier League football, and you see a bit of Championship. League One's probably the one league, and obviously I've been used to the non-league football in England because of Salford came through non-league for many years. It's probably the one league that I've never really watched many games of at all. So to actually go to a League One game, I thought Birmingham were a really high standard. They were really good. Wrexham obviously have got a big story at the moment with obviously McElhenney and Reynolds. McElhenney was at the game. Obviously Tom Brady was there alongside obviously the ownership group of Birmingham. So obviously a big game in the US, a big game obviously I think Sky covered the game over here in England, and I was happy to go along. David Beckham was there as well, so it was a good night.
Well, I've been away. Okay, shall I update you on what I've been doing? I've been away.
Oh, Rebecca,
sorry,
you've had a fan fest, Rebecca, haven't you?
This is like a one-way street. Yeah, I've been at the fan fest. Thanks for asking, chaps. We did a massive fan fest. Ended up being the biggest fan fest we've ever done in Chicago. 2 days, Lincoln Park, Chicago. I think it was like 9,000 on the first day, 7,000 on the second day. Gorgeous, sunny on Saturday. Peed with rain all day Sunday. If you've seen any of the pictures, it's incredible. Everyone just got their ponchos on. Nobody left. Massive mud bath like Glastonbury for the Arsenal game. And you know what? It was like kind of in the rain. It was kind of better. It was kind of more romantic. It was like this is a little bit of English football right here in Chicago, and the American fans have the best time. Everyone drinks Guinness from like 6 o'clock in the morning. They're still there at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. There's no misbehaviour. Wow. It's amazing.
That might change in a couple of weeks, that, Rebecca, because I'm actually in Chicago. So is there a big Liverpool following over there? Is there a Liverpool bar I can get the Guinness? I'm actually there for the marathon. My wife's running the marathon
Nicola.
there.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
No, that's going to be amazing. No, you'll find Jamie, you'll find loads of Liverpool bars. There'd be tons. It's massive there.
Your wife's been running a marathon for the last 15 years with you. And Rebecca, just quickly, just quickly, Rebecca, you said that there was no sort of misbehaviour in Chicago at the Fan Fest, and they were drinking Guinness from 6 o'clock in the morning. When I came on the screen to do the NBC cross, everyone started singing "Gary Neville, you're a wanker."
They did. It was amazing. It was the first time. First of all, I don't think anyone uses that word in America ever until they see you. But
or on podcasts.
I know. I'd never heard anything like it. It was hilarious. I was there doing this live two-way with Gary, normally just very serious, ahead of 20 minutes until kick-off of the game or whatever it was. And as he starts talking, they're like, either they're booing or they're chanting what Gary just said. Honestly, thank God you heard it though, because it would have been, that would have been embarrassing. But
how can I upset people in Chicago? I mean, I've been to Chicago twice in my life. I mean, it's unbelievable, isn't it?
I'm a bit concerned.
Well, you've never been to Liverpool, and you know what they think of you there.
You're coming over in 2 weeks to do the actual show, the big show. So
I know.
We'll get you some security.
I look forward to it.
All right, chaps. Couple of days on from the massive one on Sunday, Man City 2, Arsenal 2. You were both there. I know you've talked about it a lot on British TV, but couple of days on now. Jamie, should we start with you? What would you say is your big reflection on the game and everything that happened?
I would say the big reflection is the fact that Arsenal have really got under Manchester City's skin. I think in the past, the first season they went for the title, I don't think Manchester City saw them as a threat at all. I think they always felt they would win the title. I think last season was what you would call a real title race, but City always felt like they had the number. But I think on the back of that game and the way Arsenal went about it, is different to how City play and how they go about certain situations, even if they're down to 10 men. I think when you listen to some of the quotes from some of the Manchester City players, Bernardo Silva mentioning Liverpool getting a little dig in at Arsenal, the fact Arsenal haven't won anything big yet. I think Akanji coming out and saying he's very confident Man City will still go on to win the league. You can just see they're starting to get under the skin. And listen, that's credit to Arsenal, and that's what we want to see. And I said at the end of the game, me and Gary were on commentary duties, that I can't wait for the return, and I actually hope that they get each other again in a domestic cup competition or maybe the Champions League, because I feel like this is a rivalry that's going to continue for the next few years, whether Pep stays or not, because I think Manchester City will always be there. But I think when Mikel Arteta's building there now, there's a real togetherness, a real spirit within the team, and I think they're going to fight Manchester City and maybe Liverpool, hopefully, for every trophy over the next 2 or 3 years.
Gary?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Cara. It was a love-in a little bit before sort of the previous games, because obviously the managers have worked together, and I think that what's happened now on Sunday is that basically that fixture's ignited, and irrespective of what we hear from the managers in the next press conferences about the fact they respect each other, which I'm sure they do, the players now are at each other, and there is definitely a sort of, if you like, a bite about it, and it needed to come to life. I think that, you know, we've in the past hunted teams down at Manchester United, but I remember when I retired from Manchester United in 2011 and City were getting closer to us. It felt like you knew they were getting closer to us. And I think Jurgen Klopp had to do that with City over a period of a few years when he was sort of climbing that mountain to get close. It very much feels now like, you know, Arsenal are on the sort of cusp and on the brink and right on the shoulder of Manchester City. The last giant step to go past them is the hardest one, but what they do have is a confidence. I mean, the admiration I have for Arsenal on Sunday, doing what they did, to come back from one. I mean, City were absolutely unbelievable in that first 15 minutes. Some of the football that they played was outstanding. So to come back and be 2-1 up at half-time was in itself brilliant. Then to actually hang on in there for what was 52 minutes of the second half, with obviously 10 men, Trossard getting sent off. It just, I think, will give them such belief that they've got this sort of, you know, people talked, I mean, I called them, I didn't say bottle it 2 years ago, but there was definitely, they crumbled in the home run, in the sort of, if you like, the running, and they definitely fell short mentally. This is a different proposition now. They are a mentally strong team. They're playing title-winning football. They've got concentration and focus that is at a really high level. And City and Arsenal are going to go head to head this season, and it's going to be close again. But I like the idea, like Carragher said, that it's ignited and it's now really what would be a sort of a game that we would expect at the top of the Premier League. We want those scuffles, we want those fights. It's more difficult for referees, I know, but generally we need that in the sort of commentary box. We want that friction between the managers, between the teams and on the touchlines.
One of the big stories that's come out, Gary, of the game, we saw Rodri go off injured, and it does now look like it's an ACL with possible out for the rest of the season. How significant is that?
Oh, it's terrible, obviously, for Rodri. Terrible for City. We know how important he is. They win when he plays. And when he doesn't play, there's a far greater chance of them losing. We know that. The statistics don't lie. It's a massive blow. It will give Arsenal a big boost. But, I was thinking earlier on today when I first heard the news, obviously it's not been fully confirmed yet, but it probably will be. I was thinking, what will Pep Guardiola have up his sleeve? You think of a man who put Mascherano at centre-half for Barcelona, a man who's put sort of, if you like, players into different positions that we would never have expected as a manager. And I was thinking, who is he going to put in there? How is he going to play to compensate for the loss of this probably talisman type figure? I think of only Haaland probably that you could take out of the City team that would damage them as much as Rodri. I know De Bruyne's there, I'm not ignoring him, but I think if you were Arsenal and you could take one player out of the City team, because they've not lost Alvarez, you'd take Haaland out probably number one, you'd probably take Rodri out number two. I don't know whether Carragher would agree with that, but I think that looking at, does John Stones become Rodri for the next 6 months? He'll be working on that already, Pep Guardiola. He won't just sit back and do nothing. I can't see him just doing the ordinary.
The problem with losing Rodri is not just the quality, is the fact that he almost plays every game and every minute of every game. And what that does then is put huge pressure on someone like Kovacevic, who he's not used to playing every single week of every single minute, and he picks up injuries. So it's a knock-on effect of not just your best player getting injured. Players who are not used to playing every single game will have to play more now, so they'll end up picking more injuries up as well. So that's the first problem. I think the second problem is when you lose a player of that figure, and we only have to look at players in the past who have such a huge influence on teams. I think of Roy Keane one season, I think doing his ACL at Leeds, and I think that was the season when Arsene Wenger and Arsenal went on to win the double, I think in '98. I think of Liverpool a few years ago with Virgil van Dijk, he'd done his ACL very early in the season, and I actually believe Liverpool would have gone on and won the title that season because City had actually started really poorly. Liverpool had started really well, lost Van Dijk, then lost two other centre-backs because they were asked to play more than what they were capable of, which was Joe Gomez and Joel Matip. So Liverpool ended up having Jordan Henderson and Fabinho at the back because of the situation at centre-back, and then obviously Man City go on and win the league. But I've always felt Man City have got the edge on Arsenal. I now feel with Rodri being out, if he is out for the season, I think this makes it a real 50-50 season now about who's going to win the title. In
terms of how difficult it is to replace him, before they lost the FA Cup final against United in May, Rodri, had gone 74 games unbeaten for City. So, as you say, he's got to sort out personnel, he's got to sort out possibly a change of system as well. It's unbelievable statistic. Let's welcome in now former referee Christina Unkel for Ref Watch, who's going to be with us all season long, and just go through some of those biggest moments and just get your take, Christina. Lovely to see you as always. We're going to get your take on the Trossard red card, the Kyle Walker incident for the Calafiori goal. But I want to start by asking you about something that maybe became a little bit bigger after the game, because not everybody saw it at the equaliser, and that was Erling Haaland throwing the ball at the back of Gabriel's head during the goal celebration. Ian Wright on his social media absolutely spitting feathers about it. Christina, is that an offence? Could he have received something? Apparently VAR did look at it and decided no. What do you think?
The dark arts were alive and well in this game. I think you guys hit on the head. There's not going to be any love lost between these two teams moving forward. And you know what? Stepping into this game, the situations, the magnitude, the opportunities for these kinds of fires, those were all things that could be anticipated. I remember seeing that goal scored and immediately seeing the ball being bopped off the back of his head, and surprised actually that the VR did take a look at that, but yet did not deem it worthy of a red card offense for striking a player with the ball on that respect. Surprised too that the Football Federation didn't decide to move forward with any other further sanctions with respect to that. And the reason why, and I've seen some explanations saying to the effect of saying it wasn't aggressive enough, the ball wasn't thrown with malice, the ball wasn't, at the end of the day, if you haven't been in a match where if that would have been noticed, that can easily lead to game escalation. It could lead to obviously fights. It could lead to disrespute. It could lead to additional red cards. They just happened to be lucky that everyone had their heads down at that moment. But yeah, I was really surprised that there was no additional sanctioning for that. It's clearly not a football play. It's not within the run of play, and it's just continuing to egg on and haunt that. Not putting any defenses for it, right? And sometimes you do have to make a decision, and you do have to say after the fact, regardless that it's Erling Haaland, you have to act on that, because if not, now you have the discussion out there saying now they're protecting what we call a blockbuster player, right? That there's no repercussions for those actions. So other players are going to say, well, if he gets away with it, why can't I? So a bit surprised. I did think that should have been a post-sanction for that after the fact. If the referees decide not to act on it, the VAR decides not to act upon it, the league can still provide additional sanctions, whether that's games and or fines and penalties for that. So pretty surprised that he didn't take action on it.
I actually agree with you, Christina. And obviously, we were commentating and weren't doing our jobs very well because we didn't see it at the time. But I think that the fact of the matter is, as a football player, and this is not something that would be a rule in 2024. It would be a rule in 2014 or 2004. If I threw the ball at Carragher's head directly from sort of what would be a couple of metres away in a game, I think I would be red carded. I think I would accept that would be a red card if you purposely throw the ball at someone a couple of metres away. As much as me and Cara laughed at before when we saw it, because it's quite funny, the fact of the matter is it is a red card in football. And
is that a red card?
I think if you...
yellow.
I think if you throw the ball at someone's head purposely, I think you're asking for a red card, and we would be saying, how stupid can you be to do that? And we would have said that there's no leg to stand on. I think I can see why it would have been a red card.
All right, Leandro Trossard, red card. What's been amazing about this is that Mikel Arteta has today come out and said that he was passing the ball to Gabriel Martinelli. He wasn't kicking the ball away, he was just passing it to Martinelli. I think most of us, I'm sure you guys, we did certainly when we were at the Fan Fest in Chicago, all immediately thought it was for the foul, for the barge. But then when you actually look at the referee's body language, you can see that as soon as he kicks the ball away / passes the ball to Martinelli, he gets out his yellow card and second red. Any problems with that? Letter of the law, right? They've just got to stop kicking the ball away.
No, so it's going to be consistent. PJ Mole's going to support this second yellow red card, but Rebecca, I think you hit it on the head. The second yellow should have been for the reckless challenge itself, right? There, if you take a look, you watch that play back again, ball's in the air, he's not even taking a challenge for the ball, he's just driving right through the player. That situation itself falls for reckless yellow card. You issue a yellow card for reckless, I think it's not as big of a talking point. But when you issue this yellow card for, delaying the restart by, kicking the ball away, when the timing is very, very close. I took a look at Oliver. I couldn't sequence the timing of the whistle from when he kicks the ball, but it's so darn close. Find the argument that's a bit more justifiable that we're not having these conversations. And that's just the reckless challenge in and of itself. But like I said, PJ Mole's going to support this. Is it supportable by law for delaying the restart? Yes, obviously. Does it not feel good because it's Arsenal again, and we've already had the Declan Rice situation? That was a big talking point. But now you're going to have everyone looking at every potential kicking the ball under a microscope and arguing, if he got a yellow on this one, why isn't it a yellow on this game? Whereas if we gave a yellow for reckless, it probably wouldn't be a talking point here today.
I mean, I understand managers coming out and defending the players. It's always seen as a great trait in a manager. He always defends his team or his players. But I don't understand when a manager comes out and says something like Mikel Arteta has done, where everybody else can see what it is. And it's easy just to come out and say, no, but it's just so easy just to come out and say, yeah, okay, yeah, rush of the moment, high stakes game, I get it. we'll learn from it. And I hope he is saying that privately, because I mean, I just think sometimes when it's so obvious what the misdemeanor was, a manager just makes himself look silly, coming out and saying that he's seen something completely different, when this is a very intelligent football man who's obviously seen what we've all seen. I just think it's daft. I mean, did you have that feeling, Gary, at times? Would Ferguson come out in a situation like that?
I think there were times where basically, I think there is a tactic sometimes for a manager to say something so ridiculous to shift the actual headline away from the actual player, so that it actually becomes about them and that people start talking like this. I mean, to be honest with you, if that was a pass to Martinelli, then he probably should have been yellow carded for the inaccuracy of the pass. It was it was that bad. You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, I think Sir Alex Ferguson sometimes, and he said this obviously later on, that he would sometimes come out after the game and say something that was quite so obviously the opposite of what everyone saw, just purely to get the headline away from the actual incident itself. And I can only think that Mikel Arteta is playing that game.
So the Ricardo Calafiori goal, incredible goal. From the free kick, as we know, Bukayo Saka as captain and Kyle Walker as captain were asked by Michael Oliver, and Kyle Walker made a point of saying this afterwards. I didn't go over to him. He asked us to come over to him to have a chat, and then Kyle Walker couldn't get back in time. Ball was played. I think it was Martinelli, wasn't it, who crossed it in for Calafiori. Except he kind of did get back. I mean, he was actually right there by Martinelli. He was just kind of complaining on the way. Lucky he's so quick. What's your take on that?
So I've actually looked at this a couple of times, because anytime an official involves themselves in a play, takes the captains to the side, has the conversation, I've seen all of it, because at first I was surprised as to why there was a lot of frustration on that play when I was watching it live. And then to know that after the fact, he did not find himself, that he was set and he was prepared for that quick take. So then I isolated, okay, what was Oliver doing? So anytime we have a ceremonial free kick, right, where we have taken a procession, we've taken time out of it, ideally we would always like for it to restart with a whistle. I have not yet gotten confirmation whether or not Michael Oliver did start with the whistle. There's at one time he's moving forward with the players. They're all getting situated. He turns his back so he can now look at the ball. And then you see his arm go to his face in some direction. I don't know if a whistle was blown at that time. But for me, for that argument, even if he was to delay another 3-5 seconds to let him get in position, he was still exposed because of where the players were situated. There was no other player coming back to get to him. So I don't know if that argument is being made to kind of help take off the heat of the fact that they lost focus and concentration on the player in the far outside right, and he didn't have the proper man-to-man marking plus that following support. Because I can kind of see the argument where it's saying I needed more time to get there, but at the same time he was pretty much already there, and it felt like it was a natural flow in it. The ball, I know they were talking about, the ball was maybe 5 yards further than that, but at the end of the day, I thought it was okay. I don't think it was a big issue. Even if he hadn't blown the whistle, there was still quite enough time.
I disagree with that, Christina. So there was an argument that was moving around that Kyle Walker should have got back in quicker. There is no obligation on a defender to sprint back in because a referee's called both captains over to actually talk to them about the way in which the game's going, and they want them to control their players. So my view is you can jog back in, you can probably not walk back in, but you've no need to sprint back in when a referee has stopped the game, quite clearly brought both captains over. It's then, I think, the job of the referee to make sure that Kyle Walker has got back and he's set. I'd be surprised if Michael Oliver didn't look back upon that decision and think, I thought he lost it for about 15 minutes before half-time. I thought he had one of his most difficult moments that I've seen Michael Oliver had. I thought the game got really hot, really difficult, and he was struggling out there a little bit. He didn't make a disastrous decision, but I just thought he's feeling it out there. And I thought that one, City had some sort of reason to sort of be a little bit aggrieved with my view.
I'm with you, Gary, on that one. I'm with you, Gary, on that one, because it's you're talking about what it means for Kyle Walker. But even for the referee, I mean, and you'll know this, Christina, sometimes when you're in a situation, sometimes a referee will, in a certain situation, he'll give himself a little bit more time just for his own sake. So that's a situation where if Arsenal do score from it, a referee surely would be thinking, I might come into question here. I think just to make sure he's not, getting the finger pointed at him as we are here a little bit, that just normally a referee in that situation will give himself the extra 5 seconds, as Gary said. It's not a massive amount of time. It's not 30 seconds a minute VAR situation. It's just like, I've called him over. I need to make sure, not just that he's back, that everything is set so no one can point the finger at me.
No, and I mean, I agree. Like the instruction is and the advisement is, right? Whenever you do take time and you speak to players, you make sure everyone's set. I think my question was, Michael Oliver, Walker, everyone's moving into position. He's moving. Michael Oliver turns his body, sees that the ball is about to be kicked, then turns again and scans and sees that everyone's already behind the ball, right? So it's not like Walker was next to him and still talking. So that's why I think for Oliver, he's like, all right, we're good. The ball's good. We're in play. But we're saying that you think that Walker, and I agree, like we don't ask the players to sprint into position. We don't ask them to walk into position, but to get there. We're just saying, I guess that's the part that I'm just trying from like an officiating perspective, from a, when we take a look at this clip, obviously is it better in retrospect for him to have said on my whistle, but was it materially different? Would we have said Walker needed another 2-3 seconds to get into a better position to have properly defended that?
Brilliant stuff. Christina, thank you so much. You're going to join us all season long for all those big decisions on Ref Watch. Thanks, Christina. We'll speak to you soon.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Christina.
Thanks, all. Speak soon.
It's Called Soccer is sponsored by SeatGeek. Right, everyone, we are heading right into the thick of sports season. The NFL is underway and the MLS Cup playoffs are kicking off soon. And the new NBA and NHL season are just around the corner. It's all kicking off. I'm trying to catch an MLS match this weekend while I'm here in the States, and for that, I'm using SeatGeek. I've been checking out the app and it's got everything I need to get to a game. And even better, you can use the code ICS10 to get 10% off any tickets on SeatGeek. That's right, 10% off any ticket. Whether you're a new customer or not, sports, concerts, festivals, you name it. SeatGeek makes it very simple to find the best tickets. They've got a rating system from 1 to 10, so you just look for the green dots. Green means a great deal, red means bad. Nice and easy, right? So, grab your phone, open the SeatGeek app, and add the code ICS10 to your account. Don't hang about, because this offer's not here for long. And those games are coming thick and fast. Remember, that's code ICS10 in the app for 10% off tickets at SeatGeek, up to $20 off.
Okay, so today it's a bit of a family affair on It's Called Soccer. Look who we are welcoming in, former Manchester United, Everton, England midfielder, plus he's been around the block so far in his managerial career, and we're going to get into that in a second. Mr. Phil Neville. Phil, live from, I think, before training at Timbers, which we will get to. Thank you for joining us. Lovely to see you. We're going to start by talking about right at the beginning of everything. You and Gary, growing up in an incredibly sporty family, Phil. What's your earliest sporting memory within your family?
Well, I think Tracy can be added to that as well, our sister, because she was involved in everything that we did as a sport. I think my first memory was going to watch Man United with my dad. My mum and dad both played sport, and I remember my dad taking me to Manchester United, walking out there, not going out to Old Trafford for the first time, and then just playing sport absolutely every single day of the week, whether it was football, cricket, golf, tennis. We literally did something every day of the week together, me, my brother and my sister, whether it was in a team, whether it was just going to the local park. We literally played sport every single day of the week. We watched sport every single day of the week. And we were obsessed, and my dad and my mum were obsessed with sport. So our lives revolved around their sporting activities and us being involved in clubs and playing football, cricket, or whatever sport we wanted to play.
Your accent's changed, Phil, from when you were younger.
I thought that. From 6 months ago.
In what way has it changed, Gary?
It's gone a little bit slower, a little bit more sort of... It's certainly not the northern sort of English accent that I grew up with, that's for sure.
Do you think he's got a little bit
Well, you've
American?
changed as well.
A little bit American. There's a little bit of a twang in there, Cara, isn't there?
Yeah, there's something going on. I hear Kate Abdo do this quite a lot. Just goes from sort of Mancunian to American very quickly. Yeah. Is that to get the press on side, Phil, over there?
No, but you know what? You do end up saying some sort of like words that are not English. You know, I think the whole family do. We've been here for 3-4 years now, so you do end up just talking a little bit and saying different words here and there. In the team talk on at the weekend, For the fullback position over here, they say outside back, and I said outside back, and my assistant went, "What the hell have you just said there?" And I said outside back for fullback, and you just have to pinch yourself sometimes.
Do you say trash or rubbish?
Yeah.
Trash.
So do I.
Yeah.
What's happened to us?
Do you know there's words that I use now, like like the car boot. I'll say
yeah,
trunk.
the trunk.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know, guys. I know.
Gary is hanging his head in shame. Phil, I'm sure you've been asked this question before, but lots of people listening will be the first time they've actually seen you guys together on a podcast and heard you together. How special was that to achieve everything that you achieved in the game? So many massive moments, to do it with your brother standing next to you.
Yeah, I think that was bigger than the medals itself for me, bigger than the trophies that we won, bigger than playing for the club that we played for, that we loved, was the fact that I got to do it with my brother. And I think because we're so close, what it probably meant to my mum and dad, every time we would go to a game, prepare for a game, come off after a game, the look on their faces was just something that I actually miss still to this day. They were so proud of us. It was their dream to see their, obviously, children play for the club that they loved. And like I say, that the memories and the photos of us winning are far more important, because every photo that we ever had together was probably, because I wouldn't say we're the most probably emotionally tied brothers, but I think every time we won a game or we did something, we were always the first ones to have a picture together. And I think those are the memories that I probably hold on to more than the medals that I actually won.
Obviously, it's a great story. You've just mentioned the family connection there, but you're both in the same position. And that must have, it's not like you're competing for the same position. So, I mean, how tough was that when one was picked ahead of the other? How did the other one take that? How did that affect your family as well going to the game?
Do you know, I think it affected my mum a lot. My dad, all my dad wanted was Man United to win, whether we played or not. He was so sort of like cold in that respect. If we came off after the game and I'd say he didn't play and we'd won, he was having a beer and he was like, we've won the game, just get on with it, son. Where my mum, she would obviously have to celebrate with one and probably try and pick up the other one. I never felt it affected sort of like our relationship. I never felt once we were in the club that it affected us. I wanted Gary to do well, sometimes more than myself, and I know how he felt about me. So that was never the problem. The problem was probably my mum and dad. My mum suffered a lot, particularly when I went to Everton and we were playing against each other. She would just not come to the game. She hated it. She hated the fact that we were competing against each other. She hated the fact that we were probably, one of us was going to be happy, one of us was going to be sad, because she just wanted us to be together and happy all the time. So I think it affected the family more than it did actually me and Gary.
Yeah, I think the two times that I remember sort of it becoming not a problem, but the first time was for when the 1996 FA Cup final. I was probably the more senior at that time. I was playing for England and I was obviously sort of doing quite well. I played for England for 12 months and I got left out of the 96 Cup final, and Phil played with Dennis Irwin. So Phil, you played left back, didn't you? And Dennis played right back.
Yeah.
And that was like a massive shock to me at that time, that sort of I'd been left out the last couple of games of the season. So Phil played in the league title decider at Middlesbrough away in 96, and then the week after in the cup final. And that was hard, you know what I mean? Because you'd sort of like played for 12 months and obviously he was your younger brother. But Phil was like unbelievable in that season towards the end. And then the other one was towards the end when Phil just got more tired of being left out, I think, just gradually season by season, didn't you? You always played like 30, 35 matches, but you felt that you wanted to play every single week, and then obviously you just knew that disappointment of him not playing was getting more to the point where he was saying, I'm going to need to leave here, I'm going to need to go and make that jump and get out of United because I want to be a regular every single week. So it was a little bit tougher towards the end when Phil, I suppose, didn't accept the fact that he was going to be playing 30, 35 matches and he wanted to play 45, 50 if you like, or just be a regular. I think it was more about the actual pride, wasn't it, of if you being a regular starter in a team.
Well, I think I still felt I was better than the players that were playing at that time. I know
You're talking about Gary.
The Clebersons, the Jembas were coming. But going back to the 96 FA Cup final, I don't know if you remember that Sir Alex would come round to your room sometimes on FA Cup final day, and I remember he came round to our room and I was rooming with Gary, and when he knocked at the door, you know, he had this little cough that he this little coffin, you knew it was him. And when Gary went outside, I knew that he was going to be left out, and that was really an awful feeling for me. And that's the moments I found more difficult, was that I knew that my brother, my best friend, was probably going to be suffering watching me, watching from the bench when he came back into the room. I knew he was left out. We didn't really address it. We didn't really speak about it. But for me, that used to hurt me more than probably my own disappointment. And then at the end, I just needed to get away. And I say that my biggest thing was getting away, was probably leaving behind probably a group of friends and brothers that I love playing with.
Phil, playing obviously is only half of your story, because since you retired, there's been so much, and we're going to get onto that in a tick. But before we get onto you as a manager, it's a question you've been asked a million times, but I always think it's a good one for people. The best day as a player, the best memory as a player was what?
99. Without a doubt, the 99 10 days was the best 10 days of my life. Our family's always been sort of like against anything like tattoos, and I actually got a tattoo on my arm with the 99 season sort of like on my arm. It was just the best 10 days.
Do you
did I not tell you that?
I mean, if you two brothers.
I think, to be fair, that the criteria for speaking to each other is if we do pass away. I think at that point we'll probably get into the family.
I will speak at your funeral, I promise. I will speak at you. I'll have some really good stories as well. I was in Miami, and it was my birthday, and Bex had invited me round to his apartment for evening meal, and when we went round there was a tattoo artist there I think he was doing a tattoo for David and his boy, and I decided to get a 99 tattoo, and it took me about a year to tell my mum, and I obviously haven't told Gary yet, because we were just anti-tattoos, but 99 was the best.
Let's see it.
Phil, can you show us,
Let's
please?
see it.
Can you show us his tattoo? Show us the tattoo.
This
is a global unveiling. Hang on.
Tattoo
What?
there, yeah.
It looks like
Okay, yeah,
What,
we
just
can
a
see it.
It looks like
1999?
1893.
It probably does. Beck stitched me up and put another year on. It's the year he sacked me, I think he put on. So,
Gary, you not got any tattoos?
No, I haven't got any tattoos. No.
You're tattoo free.
No, nothing at all. I think, to be fair, should we, to signify Phil's tattoo, do you think I should go and get one?
Yeah, go on, get one.
what would you put, Gary?
I don't know, the tattoo that if I was ever going to have one, I thought it was going to be a lion and a devil.
Because you're a lion, aren't you, Gary?
No, I'm saying, a lion to represent the three lions for England, and then the devil for Manchester United. So I was going to have a devil and a lion on each arm.
No, that's cheap.
Is it? What, rather than having four numbers on your
I
arm?
think Phil's is better and more, understated.
Okay, so from 1999 and then the end of your career at Everton, you went into coaching pretty quickly. Obviously, assisting David Moyes at Man United, went to be with Gary at Valencia, then the England women's team, the Lionesses, then to America, to Inter Miami, and now at the Portland Timbers. 5 really different, really big jobs. What has been your biggest learning as a manager throughout that journey? If there was one thing that, maybe as a player you never thought about, but now as a manager, it is the biggest learning for you.
I think the 10 months with David Moyes at Manchester United were incredible. Were incredible because there were so many challenges. There was so many. It was almost, I saw it firsthand, that you don't see as a player how a manager probably sometimes can't succeed in the environment, the culture that he's gone into. And I think that was definitely a 10-month period where it was almost impossible to be successful. It was and managers since then have found it impossible. Really top managers have found it impossible to succeed. When if a club is not right from the very top, right down to the very bottom, a club can't succeed. And I think I saw things in that 10 months from the way the manager was treated, from the sort of like the abuse from social media, from the way that pundits treated him, from the way that supporters looked and treated a manager, and really sometimes the way that players reacted towards a manager and players behaved for a manager in that first 10 months. If there was ever, I think I think a lot of us have done our coaching badges, but nothing on those coaching courses that I've been on prepared you for that 10 months that I experienced, where I thought that I was going to go into a job that was going to be probably stable for the next 10, 15 years. I couldn't see myself working in another job. The experience, the thing that we'd associated with Manchester United was continuity, loyalty, time to do your job, and it was anything but that. And at the end of it, I literally had to take sort of like 12 to 18 months out just to re-energize and to think about whether that was something that I wanted to do. And I was obsessed with coaching from the age of 24, but that 10 months opened my eyes to actually what I needed to do and needed to prepare myself for, because I think football at that time was just beginning to change with social media and this new breed of supporters that was coming in, and that 10 months was brutal for one man. I saw a man that I loved, that I respected, that was a brilliant coach, just get treated like something I've never seen before.
So you use that word brutal to describe that 10 months, Phil. Valencia.
Yeah.
Give us a word to describe that.
But Valencia was my biggest learning as an actual technical coach. So you think about different experiences. Valencia was, because I can now speak Spanish, and two, the level of detail that coaches in Spain coach, prepare, plan, and I'd say that the way that they look after themselves, it's not stay in the building till 10 o'clock at night. They just coach the team. They make sure that the next day they have energy to coach, and the detail in which they go into the technical side. There was no sports science at Valencia. There was no video analysis. They just played football, technical football, and I'd say that was incredible. But that club is volatile. That club sacks managers. I think Gary knew when he took the job that Koeman, Emre, all these top managers, Benitez, they'd all been there and all been sacked, and so it was a hell of an experience.
Phil, can I just ask you? I mean, I think it was after Valencia, I think, though, because obviously you'd done a number 2 job at United and you'd done a number 2 job at Valencia. I remember you saying to me after that when you left Valencia that you would never do a number 2 job ever again, because you were offered a couple of good number 2 jobs, weren't you? I think in the Premier League at the time.
I just thought, no, it's time. I had to go on my own, and the only thing missing probably from my CV was that every club kept saying to me when I would apply for jobs, interview for jobs, was that you've not had managerial experience. So I had to get on the ladder somehow, and Dan Ashworth called me. I think it was Christmas Eve, something like that. He said, "It's a long shot. Would you be interested in the Lioness job?" And I was with Tracy at the time in having something to eat, and I came off the phone. I said, "I need 48 hours to think about it," and we talked about it, and she just went, "You have to go for it," and I did.
Did you think, Phil, when you accepted it, that it was a risk? Leaving the men's game, I mean, to go into the women's game, which everybody knows is very different. And still, actually, seen...
I did.
You thought it was a risk, Gary?
Yeah. I remember ringing Phil up. I mean, I said at the time, to be honest with you, I think that my fear was that obviously Phil wanted to be a number 1 coach in the men's game as well. And my fear was that it's just a thing really about sort of myself and Phil, that people will... I swear it, take the piss out of us. You understand what I mean? If there is something to take the piss out of us, they'll take the piss out of us for it. And we're fine with that because we've been used to it all our lives. If the Nevilles can play for England, so can I, and all that sort of stuff that fans would sing at grounds. And I just thought that he would get a barbaric amount of criticism. But I have to say that he was absolutely adamant that, he was wanted to go and do it, and he wanted to take the job. And look, when I look back now, I'm absolutely glad that he did, because I think that it was obviously the Lionesses since have won a tournament, and Phil, you obviously were sort of just before that, but the idea that sort of how now the Lionesses are portrayed in our country and sort of in women's football, Phil was brave enough to take that sort of leap before this, if you like, success of the Lionesses had occurred, and I think that takes real guts.
I think Tracy said to me, she said, because I said, "Do you think it'll do you think it'll be enough for me? She went, it's changing. The opinions of people are changing. The sponsorship, the viewing figures, the world is changing towards, and she said at the time, towards us. She said, now's the time to get and jump on the bandwagon and get involved with women's sport. And she said, I think you could give it a real boost. And when I started coaching, I'd seen a lot of coaches just stay in the same job, assistant coach, youth team manager for 20, 30 years. And I didn't want to be that old grey-haired guy that was at the club for one. I wanted to do something really different in anything that I did. I wanted new experiences. I'd always wanted to play abroad. I then coached abroad. And so this was another, because it was so left field at the time, I thought, it actually really excited me more than the Premier League assistant manager's job, because it was different. It was creating my own pathway away from everybody else that I'd been involved with. And so I drove from my house in Valencia down to La Manga to meet the team, and Sue Campbell, who was the head of football at the time, who was a really wonderful woman. And from the very first moment I addressed the team, I was just obsessed with, because until you've lived in the shoes of a female sports woman, you don't know the obstacles that have come their way, and the look on their faces with the excitement, with the plans that we had from going from playing at, for instance, no disrespect, first, second division grounds, to say every game will be at a Premier League ground. We're going to get this team back to Wembley. We're going to fill stadiums. It was like giving them a Christmas present every single day. And like I say, that probably 2.5 years was my best ever time, probably in football, never mind in management. It was just the most rewarding. I learned so much about diversity, inclusion, discrimination, the way that females have to be trained differently than males. And now I'd say that stood me in such good stead in terms of the rest of my life.
I mean, I covered the England women's team for 10 years of my career when I was in England. And just the difference, I just think they have a lot to thank you for as a figure, because it changed. I couldn't believe it. When you took the job, I was absolutely gobsmacked, because I knew it was going to make people more interested. You definitely, off the field, you changed so much of that perception of the England women's team and laid the ground on the field for that win at the Euros. So I think on and off the field, women's football have a lot to thank you for. That was one slight culture shock then. Then, I know I'm being way too nice to you. Then you went to the States, right? Into Miami, another culture shock. Tell us about that.
That really wasn't that much of a culture shock, really.
Football-wise?
Every year I'd gone out to LA on holiday, and I did my off-season training at the LA Galaxy facility. I did some rehab for 9 weeks there. I'd watched an awful lot of LA Galaxy play because David was there, then Stevie G was there, Robbie Keane was there. So I knew quite a lot about the football. What I wasn't really prepared for was sort of like the cap system. The cap system is brutal, you know, in terms of you can't just go out and buy the players you want. They've got to fit into a cap. You've got to maneuver the cap to get your players in that you want with the finances that you have, to make sure that you get the best players in the best position in a certain amount of money. You've got to wheel and deal. It's like a jigsaw puzzle, and that's something that I had to learn really, really quickly.
Just Phil, I mean, I was also a little bit nervous of you taking the Inter Miami job. Not.
You get nervous for me a lot, Gary, don't you?
No, but you think about sort of, I obviously knew at some point the likelihood would be that obviously, you know, our best friend David Beckham would have to come and have a conversation with you to say, look, this needs to sort of change and you need to leave. And I was always worried that, you know, in football, it's inevitable, isn't it? We know one thing about football management, that it's temporary, and we know it might be 1 year, it might be 6 months, it might be 4 months, it might be 3 years, but we know at some point it comes to an end. And that was my reason for sort of, if you like, being nervous about you taking that job. Did you think about that at the beginning, or was it just a case of, no, this is a new project and it's just like an unbelievable opportunity?
Both, really. And obviously we'd experienced it at Valencia with Peter, who is a good friend, and I saw the strain. Like, for instance, we'd lose a game. It wasn't about losing the game, it was almost like letting your friend down as well. I think that's the big thing. But we also know Bex, who's really strong. He doesn't buckle, and I think he's really loyal to the people that he's really close to. And so I always had faith that he would give me time, which he did. The first season we didn't do well, but there was many challenges within the club in terms of sort of like just what was happening in and around the club at that time. The second season, they give me the platform to build my own team. I got rid of 19 players in the off season. I then brought in, I think, 21 players, and we got into the playoffs, which was a really good season. And then obviously I knew that the end was coming well before the end was coming. It was pretty obvious to everybody in and around the football club and in and around the world. So, and I always think along the way we had to have some difficult conversations, but there were conversations that were pretty honest and frank. And I used to always start every conversation with, David, if this is the time, just tell me, we'll shake hands and move on. And I probably did well to survive probably as long as I did. And I'm forever thankful for what they give me. And what it did do is that in the MLS, because all the owners they're all friends, they're all part of a sort of like a board, is that I left in a way that they helped me get my next job in the MLS at Portland Timbers, and and me and David have been fine. The day that I actually got fired was actually probably harder for David than it was for me, because he really didn't want to do it. He was really emotional. I was emotional, and so, but I knew it was coming. So when you know it's coming, it's probably easier to accept.
After you left Miami, you actually came to work with us on NBC for a few weeks. Thank God you got a job quite quickly.
Unfortunately, yeah.
But when you took the Timbers job, I mean, you say you would never have had a chance to manage those players, but in the United States, Timbers is top 3, I would say, Major League Soccer clubs. Were you waiting for a big? Did you think, I want to stay in America and I want one of the biggest clubs?
Yeah, well, I had 3 interviews with MLS clubs, and in November, and I flew Miami to Portland is 8 hours. 8 hours flight, 3-4 hours time difference. It was the furthest place probably away from what we called home, and I'd been to 2 other places, and I always follow my gut. The minute I landed in Portland, I went to my hotel room, and they just decked it out in Portland Timbers gear with Neville on the shirts. And this was before I'd even interviewed. And I just had a feeling that this was probably my type of club. It was homely, it was family, it was experience. The owner here he keeps people in the club for 10, 15, 20 years. He doesn't get rid of staff. He wants consistency and continuity. And the fan base is the best in the MLS. The supporters, 30,000 every home game. The city is Portland, whether it's Portland Thorns, the women's team, or Portland Timbers, the soccer team. So I just had a gut feeling. And my first interview went well. Then they wanted another interview. It went well again. And I said no to the other 2 and just said this was the place for me. And from day one, it's felt like it's a throwback to when I first joined Everton. It's almost like the people's club. It's the club where the people in the town live for Saturdays and Wednesdays, and they live and breathe Portland Timbers. In Miami, they have the Heat, they have the Marlins. It's a different type of feeling. Football is probably not number one. Where here, it's like being in England. It's like being in Manchester. It's like being in Merseyside, where football is their life, and that's how I felt since day one.
So basically, if you want Phil Neville to work for you, put a bit of free merchandise in his room.
It goes a long way. It goes a long way.
And Phil, when you're looking at I'm looking at the table, just quickly, the standings, as we call them, and you're 8th right now, 44 points. It's really tight. There's only 7 points between 2nd and 8th. So just to finish up on your American time, how are you thinking about the rest of the season?
Well, we've got 4 games left. If we win our 2 home games and get to 50 points, we could be in the top 4, which guarantees you a home playoff tie. Home playoff ties are probably, if you play at home in the MLS, you're probably 90% guaranteed to win. Winning away from home is so difficult with the travel and the time differences and the altitude or whatever, the climate. So we want a home playoff tie. I think we've won the last 13 at home. And so with only drawing 1, so I think if we get a home playoff tie, we can go deep. We can go really deep into the playoffs. So I think we play away in Vancouver, then we've got 2 home games. I think next week the 3 games will define whether we're in probably top 7 or top 4. And so we've got a team that scored more goals than any other team in the conference, only second behind Inter Miami. But we've also got a team that's conceded more goals than everybody else in the whole of the league as well. So we are an attacking team, and we're like the Kevin Keegan of
I was wanting the name, Phil. I was wanting the name.
Yeah, you need to get your outbacks to do a better job.
Outside backs, Garrett. Outside backs.
Sorry,
I'm the outback. I'm the outback of the family. The outside backs, the fullbacks. You know.
Phil, we've got a couple more minutes with you. A couple more questions. Last week, because I know you listened to the podcast and or you watched the podcast, you saw Maurizio Pochettino was on it.
Yeah.
Big.
Yeah.
For this country, that's huge, right? For the football in this country, that's massive. That appointment.
Massive. I mean, if you look at the 2 appointments, Emma Hayes and Maurizio Pochettino, it's absolutely huge. I think the talent in this country is incredible, and I think they've underperformed so much. I do think 2026 is going to be probably a big thing for this country in terms of the investment. It's in Canada as well. Canada have just named Jesse Marsh, so I think there's both countries see this as their big pivotal. Academies are now 10 years old in this country. They didn't have academies before then, so you think about the evolution of an academy football. 2026 should be the pinnacle for the players that are coming through. I think there's some players in that American team that have vastly underperformed. Some of the players that play in Europe come back and play international football have underperformed. I think the qualification in this part of the world is night and day compared to what it is in Europe. It is brutal. It is brutal, the qualification games. And I think they needed somebody of Pochettino's experience, the way he manages people, the way he performs, the style of football will suit. I think the American player here is athletic. It could be high press types of players, and I think he'll suit it down to the ground, just like Emma going in with the US women's national team, who were digressing so much. She came in and now they've just won Olympic gold. So I think 2 brilliant appointments.
Obviously, you're so committed to Portland Timbers, and you won't be looking beyond that. But do you ever see what is the dream one day to come back and manage a team in the Premier League? Would that be where you'd like to be in the future, say 5-10 years?
Yeah, I do, but the football out here, we get every game, and watching it from the outside, I've got to say, and I speak to obviously Premier League managers, and it doesn't look enjoyable. And you guys are obviously pundits, and it doesn't look enjoyable what managers have to go through nowadays in terms of in the Premier League, in terms of the scrutiny, the abuse, everything. It just doesn't look enjoyable. I remember speaking to David Moyes about 12 months ago, and he said, Phil, stay out in America, value your time, value your life, value your coaching career, because it is brutal back here. Now, every time I watch a Premier League game, the atmospheres, the intensity, that is really where I hopefully see myself one day. But there's another part of me that obviously enjoys the fact that I've got real stability in my job. I can continue to develop and become a better coach. I'm in a league that's getting better and better, that's growing in a part of the world where I think other players and top managers will want to come to. My lifestyle for my family is better than I've ever had it. So I've got things really good at this moment in time, and I look at what managers have to go through on a daily account. Every press conference that I watch, I think, why would I go back there and listen and put myself through some of the shit that they have to go through? And you two are obviously the best at it, but still the scrutiny that they get put onto, tactics, systems, selections even, it's inhumane, I think, what they have to go through.
Phil, I know you've got to get to training. Just one final question. Do you think it is time now that we've gone full circle and Gary should come out and be your number 2?
No, but Gary's fucking stubborn, right? Because he should be a football manager, and what I saw at Valencia, he should have continued to be a manager, and that was one of my biggest disappointments. Is that I think when he came out of Valencia, he should have got straight back into management. That was my feeling, because I thought he did a good job. He was doing good work, and obviously it didn't work out in the end, but. And same for Carragher. Do you think you'll ever be a manager, Carragher?
No, I couldn't leave him on his own, could I now?
Listen, loads of luck for the playoffs. We wish you luck. We're all watching.
Thanks,
We're all
guys.
checking the scores,
Thanks,
and
see you,
we'll
Phil.
see you soon.
Thanks, guys. See you,
Phil.
see you
See you,
guys.
Phil.
Well done.
All right, that's about it for this week. Thanks so much for joining us on It's Called Soccer. Keep sending us in your questions and your comments to all of our social media channels, and subscribe to us on YouTube as well. We will see you next week.